growing up, I had a ton of N64 titles. I had the popular ones, of course, like Smash Bros, Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, but every now and again, I would come across a game at a yard sale or a rental store that piqued my interest. At the time in the late 90s, one of the biggest gaming genre trends was 3D platformers. Very much due to the huge success of Mario 64 and honestly anything Rare put out. Tons of companies were trying their hand at creating a mascot or iconic character. The best thing about this time was just the huge variety of weird, gimmicky things people were trying. You could have robots, an anthropomorphic animal, or in the case of today's video, a sentient glove. Glover was released in 1998. It was developed by Interactive Studios, which later was renamed to Blitz Game Studios and published by Hasbro Interactive. The game was conceived by two brothers, Philip and Andrew Oliver. The Oliver twins had a successful history of developing games before Glover. Beginning all the way back while still in high school, or secondary school as they call it over on that side of the pond, apparently their brother bought a used ZX81, which sparked their interest, and after upgrading to a Dragon 32, they created their first game, Roadrunner, which was published in Computer and Video Games magazine in January of 1984. They would go on to improve and grow, releasing Super Robin Hood for the Amstrad PC in 1986. The release would be published under the company Codemasters. With this release and the new publisher relationship, they would go on to develop the Dizzy series, a platformer where the main character Dizzy, who is a Humpty Dumpty type egg person, must search the fairy tale land of Kathmandu for a leprechaun's wig. Yeah, even just reading that I'm like, that plot is insane. Dizzy was apparently supposed to be just a head with hands and feet, but everyone said he looked like an egg, so the Oliver twins went with it. As far as the ZX Spectrum, which this game was released on, it is one of the most popular and important games on the platform, and would spawn so many sequels all the way up until 2020. This wouldn't be the only game series they worked on, with games like 3D Starfighter and Ghostbusters 2 being other examples. They had a pretty significant catalog. They were working with publisher Codemasters this entire time. Having a desire to have total creative control and doing their own thing, they decided to leave Codemasters and start their own studio, Interactive Studios. The company run by the Oliver twins would go on to develop and publish its first game on Sony's PlayStation 1, MS-DOS, and Windows in 1996. Fyro and Claude, which is basically an isometric shooter. It has a cool style for sure. This cemented the vision and their studio, and they went on to release Wargames Defcon 1 on PS1 and Windows, and follow that up with developing Glover for the Nintendo 64 and Windows, and then eventually for PS1 as well. It's a bit strange to me they jumped ship from PS1 for Glover initially. It seems the twins were interested in the N64's graphical power and control scheme, and they thought they could do something neat with it. The concept for Glover actually came a bit later. Originally, the twins wanted to develop a mini-golf game after being inspired by a trip to Disney. They got to work making this game, and they wanted a character in place of a putter, one who could hit the ball and chase after it, maybe guide it too. As they played around with a ball, the team realized they just needed a hand. Obviously, a severed hand was kind of off-putting, so they went the route of a glove. They would sketch it out until finally they found something they were interested in, settling on the name Glover and moving away from the golf concept into a 3D platformer, like other popular games at the time. They would go on to conceptualize the plot and answer the question of how this glove is alive, making him a magic glove. At some point, the prototype and game concept crossed the big desks over at Nintendo, and Nintendo was very interested in publishing this title themselves after seeing it. Miyamoto thought it would be cool to rebrand the game to be about Mario's glove, which, since Glover does actually look like he could be Mario's glove, maybe there was potential here. I mean, after a while we did get a sentient hat for Mario, but eventually all these talks fell through and Hasbro Interactive published the title. It's wild to think about in another world, Glover is Mario's glove. Glover would go on to release in late 1998 for Nintendo 64 and Windows, with a PlayStation port to release a year later. The game at its release was mostly positively received, but it did lean a bit on the mixed side from what I can see, though people had good things to say about the N64 version. I remember a lot of my friends when I was a kid. We played Glover, and we all liked it, but we all sort of thought it was kind of weird at the same time. I don't know, it didn't grip us like Mario 64, but we didn't hate it either. Critics definitely didn't have anything good to say about the PS1 version though. But before we look at that, why don't we look at the N64 release and what the game is like. The game opens with a cutscene and we're shown a castle in the Crystal Kingdom. This is the home of the wizard who, along with his trusty gloves Glover and Glovel, is making some magic in his cauldron. It turns out if you throw a bunch of chemicals in a pot, it can potentially explode. So it does, and the wizard is turned to stone. Magic stone. While Glover is launched out the window and Glovel lands in the cauldron mixture, Glover wakes up outside and sees the explosion rocks the magical crystals that do something here on the castle and are somehow related to the wizard's power. As they're about to crash, and as we come to learn, they are super fragile, Glover uses a spell to change them into bouncy balls. Most roll into special worlds that the entrances seem to get blocked by magic as the crystals roll through. Meanwhile, Glovel emerges as Cross-Stitch, an evil variant of himself, and wants to cause trouble and take over the kingdom. Glover must now reacquire the crystals and bring them to the statue of the wizard who absorbs the magic and with all of them can change back to his normal state. Glover has a basic platformer moveset. He can walk, run, double jump, cartwheel, and turn into a fist to slam it to the ground. He has the ability to sense where the crystals are at too. Once we acquire one of the crystals, we can alter its form into 4 different forms. The rubber ball, which is bouncy but can be popped. The bowling ball, which is sturdy and strong but very bulky and heavy. The ball bearing, which is smaller and offers more control. It's also magnetic. And the crystal form, which can give you some nice rewards, but it's super fragile. Glover can manipulate these balls by moving them, hitting them, bouncing them, throwing them, walking on top of them, and utilizing the various traits of the balls to complete puzzles and defeat enemies. It's a very unique gameplay style. The main goal is to get to the portal at the end of the level and take the crystal back to the hub world and the wizard. There are 6 themed worlds within Glover: Atlantis, a pirate world, a circus, horror world, space, and a prehistoric world. Every world culminates in a boss fight where Cross-Stitch shows up and modifies or frees a creature we need to battle. These range from a creepy clown to an orangutan to a giant Megazord robot thing. There are also additional bonus worlds where Cross-Stitch may alter us, or we utilize some sort of power-up or item to complete a challenge. I think something that makes Glover so special is just the sheer variety in gameplay. A lot of the 3D platformers at the time had really basic platforming controls, so you could find a lot of samesies across the board, but when a game stood out, it was usually because of the sheer variety in gameplay. Glover's moveset is bizarre and the goal is simple, but the stuff you have to do along the way, it's wild. Hop on a bouncy enemy and bounce around to collect stuff. It's like one of those hoppy bouncy balls with a handle, the kind made for kids that may or not be super dope. They have to make these for adults. I really want one. Everything is also really guided by physics on the game engine. So roll down a ramp, you pick up speed. Move up a ramp and you'll need speed to get up. Hit something at an angle and prepare to be infuriated. Glover's such an interesting idea, so simple on the surface, but starting off as a golf physics game, it really made this game feel special. My personal favorite world is the space world, just due to the low gravity. I think it makes things absolutely crazy. I tend to like it when I can jump high in platformers. Duck Dodgers had a level like that, and I absolutely adored it. There are also some pretty inventive power-ups in the worlds, like a copter that allows Glover to fly, potions that can affect our size and speed, or even the size of the ball. These really help keep worlds fresh and make you want to experiment with them. As expected, the game ends with us eventually defeating Cross-Stitch, reuniting with the wizard, and he changes him back. We're all friends again. My time playing this game was pretty fun. The points where I think Glover stand out are the uniqueness of it feeling like a golf physics game, but also a 3D platformer. The merging of these two, to my knowledge, hasn't been a thing ever since. Unfortunately, what worked well on the N64 and Windows version didn't pan out for the PS1. Everything in the game is virtually a downgrade, with the exception of the FMV cutscenes and some of the textures in the game. Textures like on the ball have more detail, though we do get that PlayStation wobble and generally the controls don't feel as tight. Glover can't even do his cartwheel anymore. I could be wrong on that, so if you know how to, let me know, but from pressing tons of buttons, I couldn't make him do it. I also noticed it seemed like much harder to get Glover to walk on the ball when on water. You can do it, but I felt it was automatically happening on 64, and on the PS1, it just takes some finesse that I don't have. The PS1 version also lacks some bonus levels and minigames. It's a fairly watered down version to the original released a year prior. I think everyone saying this is the inferior version is correct. Even looking at it, it just doesn't look quite as good. One thing I find interesting about this version though is the fact that there was a planned sequel, Glover 2, and they established in the intro cutscene on PS1 to make Glovel, the one that would go on to be Cross-Stitch, mischievous and intentionally become Cross-Stitch. He even planned out the potions that caused the cauldron to explode and caused all this trouble. Where in the N64 opening scene, it was an accident. It's even labeled as an accident, the accident. This behavior would play out in the sequel with Glovel tricking Glover to help restore his cross-stitch form, and we'd have to recover the wizard's spellbook this time. The unreleased sequel of Glover was actually fairly far into development. They say it was roughly 60 to 85% complete, and a build for the prototype actually leaked online and people can play it. I love when this stuff happens. It's like sort of recovering a little piece of history or childhood nostalgia back. And speaking of childhood nostalgia, Glover on N64 is a game I actually acquired from my infamous movie rental store haul, where my dad let me get like 20 to 30 games. It was incredible. As a kid, I remember thinking Glover was hard and I never finished it. As an adult and going back and playing it, it's still hard. But I think as long as you don't go for 100%, it's much easier to conquer. Your goal at the end of the day is to get to the end of the stages with the ball and return the crystal to the wizard. You don't have to collect all the tickets, or garibs I guess they're called, I don't know. Though when I was younger, I was obsessed with collecting everything. That's probably why I love DK64 and Banjo so much. Looking at all the weird mascots and characters from the 90s, I think Glover was one that stood out a bit more on the shelf, and that's probably why I picked up this game. The simplicity of the character and the colorful art on the box probably played a big hand in all of it. It just looked like it could be fun. For those curious about playing Glover today, there was a remaster that released on all major platforms. If you haven't checked out this little sentient glove platformer, I think it's worth your time. I remember Glover fondly, and I think a lot of 90s gamers do too. Go check it out. Well, that's all I have for you. Please drop a like in this video to help spread my content, and subscribe so you don't miss a future upload. Until next time, have a good one.